We're all a go. So thank you so much for joining us for today's eSports webinar. Again, if you have any questions for today's presenters, feel free to put them in the chat. We also are recording this presentation, so we'll be making that available to all registrants. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jerry and Kevin.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Video Games in the Classroom ? And this is the high school session. And this is the last of a three-part webinar series aimed at providing teachers, school leaders, administrators with an overview of the esports phenomena and the opportunity for school and student engagement. I'd like to thank Tim Taylor and Corey Pelk at the Small School District Association for providing us this opportunity. And I'd also like to extend a warm thank you to our friends and partners at NASef, the North American Scholastic Esports Federation. And I'll put the emphasis on the word scholastic here, as the premise of our presentation today is all about teaching and learning opportunity that's inherent in esports and gameplay. And lastly, a thank you to the folks at Butte County Office of Education for their leadership and support of esports and the Northern California Esports League, the NCEL, and our superintendent, Mary Sakuma. Okay, I don't have control of the slides. You must have control, Kevin.
I got it.
There we go. Here's an overview of what we intend to cover today. I'll provide a short review of what we talked about in our first two sessions, the highlights essentially. And then Kevin's going to take a deep dive into the high school esports landscape, highlight his work with NASef, both on the competitive and curricular fronts, and then provide you with a how-to bring esports bring an esports effort to life on your campus or school district. I'll jump back in at the close where Kevin and I will both provide some anecdotal accounts of our experiences around esports and the introduction in the classrooms, and sort of just talk about some of the, again, anecdotal things that we've experienced, because I think they're important to mention. Next slide, please. All right. I'm Jerry Hight, and I serve as the ringleader for the Northern California Esports League, headquartered, as I noted, in the Butte County Office of Education in Oroville, California. I do a broad array of other tasks for BCOE, but this slice devoted to esports is by far and away my favorite. I've spent the whole of my career as a liaison between industry and education, and see the ready-made horsepower, job horsepower that is inherent in esports. Kevin Brown is the esports specialist for the Orange County Department of Education and also for NASef. Simply put, Kevin is the go-to guy for all things esports, as his depth of knowledge and wealth of experience is exceeded by no one in the scholastic esports landscape, and I mean that. Truly mean that. I consider Kevin to be a mentor and an aspirational leader in this movement to connect education to competitive gaming. Kevin gets it plain and simple. He sees the connections that are both obvious and subtle, and has brought a command of the complexities that are involved in mounting esports programming on high school campuses, and has been a major catalyst in the evolution of NASef, which is now arguably the largest presence in the high school esports movement. Next slide, please. Okay, what are esports? And hit the button again for me, Kevin. Esports, or electronic sports, is a form of competition that is facilitated through computer gaming. Most commonly, esports takes the form of organized multiplayer video games. And in the next slide, these are some of the leading titles on the esports marketplace. NASef has conducted competitions in League of Legends and Overwatch. Those are the two main competitions that our high school teams have been involved with. Our NCEL Middle School League has made use of Mario Kart, Super Smash Brothers, and Rocket League tournaments and leagues. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so what? You know, aren't esports just another big thing, another fad that will be gone shortly? Well, it doesn't appear to be losing traction globally, as viewership has nearly doubled in 4 short years, from 270 million viewers in 2016 to 495 million this year. Next slide. The American public is likewise enamored, as this year's viewership for esports events will exceed that achieved by major mainstream sports like baseball, basketball, hockey, with only football drawing more viewers. But Kevin illuminated to me, or illustrated to me, that the source of these viewing statistics are skewed by their own self-interest, right? So it wouldn't be in ESPN's best interest to say that esports is more compelling than their mainstream programming. So I think that that bit of evidence is actually slightly off. In the next slide, we see the analysis from Statista that looks at esports participant population by age. And here we point out that 21%, or 19.75 million, are under the age of 18. That number, many analysts feel, is underestimated in that it doesn't account for the pervasive gameplay that occurs in preteen populations down to age 10. These numbers support our central theme today that esports play and viewership is rabid among school-age children, and as such constitutes a compelling entry point for teaching and learning. Colleges and universities don't see esports as a passing fad, as there are now over 170 schools who provide esports scholarships, with the total support for student athletes in esports totaling more than $16 million annually. Likewise can be said for the academics and thought leaders who run colleges and universities, as there are now degree programs of study specific to esports, each aiming to professionalize and advance the body of knowledge pertinent to the sport. I've been privy to what's happening down at University of California, Irvine, right in Kevin's backyard. And esports is flourishing there like nobody's business from the context of research and as a field of study. They've got some really cool things going on there. And if you are a student with any strong interest or proclivity in esports, that is just an amazing place to land. The next slide talks about the investment in business venture world not seeing esports as a passing fad. With viewing and participation numbers in the millions, the opportunity to generate revenue from multiple sources within the sport is exceedingly attractive to those looking to the future for wealth generation opportunities. And if the job market is any indicator, esports is definitely more than just a fad. This graph, this very messy graph, depicts a near doubling of jobs between 2018 and 2019 in the esports industry sector, with just under 2,500 jobs posted in 2018, rising to over 4,600 jobs in 2019. Today's look at the esports-only website Hitmarker, and this was 2 days ago, saw 6,355 posts, with more than 60% of those postings in California. Clearly, the job market in esports is expanding. I'll note that the COVID pandemic has had little impact on esports hiring, as it is one sector that has largely been isolated from its impacts. Okay, so maybe esports aren't going away anytime soon, but how can they be good for kids? Where's the evidence? Well, this is what the research says. And these are all PhD level researchers that have been, double-blind tested, have used all the standard research protocols, et cetera, in proving their validity. I don't want to just read from the slide, but everything from visual acuity, scientific reasoning, language learning, digital literacy, and problem solving, higher math and science, and technology fluency has been associated with video games and learning. And in the next slide, I want to emphasize that esports are sports. They capture the same benefits of the team experience as any other traditional sports. And this is what the research says about sports and learning. And these again are studies that have been conducted over the course of decades. And there's little arguing that playing sports, being involved with a team is beneficial to your academic undertakings. And then lastly, my friend Kat Salazar, the lead researcher and CEO of WeThink, has identified that esports and gameplay are beneficial to a myriad of job skills, from those that are general soft skills to those that are highly specialized in medical surgery or flying aircraft. Esports play has served as a career accelerant in her course of study. So to summarize, there is abundant and compelling research that points to esports and video gaming as being good for kids, plain and simple, and they love it. Students of all cliques and subgroups are gamers. Student interest is passionate and pervasive. I'm going to get off my stump now and hand it over to Kevin to talk about the high school landscape and how esports fits. So take it away, Kevin, please.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. So let's just dive into what it is to put esports into schools. It's a heavy consideration because in my full-time job working with the Orange County Department of Ed, Orange County, California Department of Education, and also working as an officer of NASef, my job is to get in front of administrators and parent groups and teachers who are considering this. More than 50% of the time, it's to debunk a lot of the myth around esports. Are we creating kids to be little thumb monkeys? Is that what this is? Are we actually taking school time to give kids playtime? And how is this beneficial? How is this not wrecking them emotionally? How is this not detracting from their educational skill set? Are we actually doing them a service? And one of the first things we'll say is that we're meeting kids where they are. We know that kids are already playing video games. Jerry showed that fantastic slide about the curve that tends to peak at 18 to 34-year-olds, but 18 to 34 didn't get there unless they were playing early. So as early as middle school, kids are already using esports, video game play, as a learning vehicle. When they want to do something in a game, they have a verb for it. They Google it. They'll go out and they'll learn. They'll do research while they're playing. I use my own grandson who lives with me as my test bed. So I'm watching what's going on right now. He's learning, he's doing his online lessons, but he's also got his cell phone open and he's looking at something that pertains to a game he wants to play later. They're native in this way, kids are, to be able to use technology, as we showed in a previous slide, to be able to serve two kinds of masters. So they're already here, they're already doing this. There's this sort of trifecta that goes on, that there's a culture around Scholastic eSports, something that bridges the community where parents and administrators can see that there is a way to use this as sort of a Trojan horse to get kids to eat what I call chocolate broccoli, give them something that they need, education, and wrap it in something that they love, in this case, esports, and they consume it with both hands. They're rabid, as Jerry said about this. We provide curriculum and a club aspect so that there's a place, a safe place to gather and play the games when it's time, but we can use esports as an educational hook to get kids to focus on what it is they need to do. So the kinds of communities that are served by NASef are just this. We reach down through community-based organizations. So we've got a lot of working with YMCAs up and down the state of California. Also, right before COVID and the lockdown started, we were in Florida, we were in Georgia, we had set up a massive program in Illinois, hubbed in Chicago. There's that for after school. We work with high schools primarily, both for our competitive leagues and also who is taking advantage of the curriculum that we've written, which is state approved. And so entire high schools are taking large chunks of curriculum that are good for college entry, but using it as an additional track to the English class, or the history, or the science class, to be able to bring kids in. Kids are usually disenfranchised, not focused on their studies, but with the salting in of this interesting ingredient of esports, they're more attentive, more likely to show up and participate in class. And then increasingly, as soon as we put something up for high school, Jerry shared it in his previous webinars, middle school is intensely interested. And this, again, is a place where kids are starting to gravitate, starting to form these communities. And so we start them off on the right foot, how to be good digital citizens, how to begin to work together so they can grow in the esports experience. So for one to work in NASef, again, the North American Scholastic Esports Federation, it is just this, bringing together these two sides that people can see as disparate, that learning and a set of school values or an ethical compass, maybe that doesn't belong with fun and play, but really they do. So when we say Scholastic Esports, this is a new term for many people, and some think they're opposed. They're absolutely, it's an oxymoron. But really it's this, it's the intentional use of esports as a vehicle for learning. It's using all of the requirements that our states and other states say need to be in education, but dressing it in such a way, lacing it in such a way that kids will focus on it and will persist throughout a school day. So when we started to write curriculum about 2.5 years ago, We started with the English language courses, thinking that would be the easiest entree. But then the challenge was immense, that there were 5 different lenses by which one would have to write curriculum to be able to include things that are important to esports. So in California, we have this codex of Common Core standards for every single subject that's taught at the high school level. We wanted to consider career tech education because everything in esports, the diagram you'll see on your right-hand side there, has an output into CTE. It's a hands-on experience. I mean, just how do we play video games? It's with our hands. How do we do all the things that chip into making a video game experience? We have to create it in some way with our minds and with our hands. So we have to attend to those standards. There are next generation science standards, ISTE standards, so for science and technology, as well as the mandate from the state of California around MTSS, multiple tiered system of support, that considers the social emotional learning aspect of a child, that they are not just little meat puppets who come in and are supposed to throw back facts and figures, but they are people with feelings, things that can either compress or oppress their days. Now with COVID, there are all kinds of situations that bear in on that child and give them duress emotionally and physically. And so we need to attend to that as much as we're saying, hey, by the way, what happened during the War of 1812? Who were the major players? So with all of that in mind, we designed curriculum. And while people think that esports, if you look at the diagram on the right, are just the player and the game, we've deduced that there are 4 large domains, now 5 if we consider health and wellness as an operative factor. But these 4 domains, strategist, content creator, entrepreneur, and organizer, each flow out into a sort of ecosystem, a world of work. And you can see on the screen where every one of these 4 domains has something that lines up very smartly with California's 15 career tech education pathways. So at least 10 or 11 of them are serviced right here by what it is we're trying to purvey. So this is how we write curriculum. And any subject that we write for has its root in one of these 4 domains, and any teacher can see where what it is they're teaching. If it's physics, if it's foreign language, if it's a history class on World Civ, one of these 4 domains can be identified, and there is work that can be bumped up against that, taught with that discipline. NASF aligns itself, just like we do with schools, with a value system that's there. We have 5 basic principles that outline what it is to compete and to work with us. And these look just like the same principles that work at every single school. You have pillars of character painted on your high school walls, and these are very similar. The fact that learning is at the key of everything we do. It's literally in the middle of our acronym, Scholastic, the S. That it gives opportunity. We're looking to bring in the kids who typically don't have access to high-end computer rigs or all the game titles. We create those opportunities. We allow for, this is an amazing little side note, with my 6th grade class, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, I was teaching a middle school class to try out some middle school curriculum. And I asked them to come up with a tagline that would tell people in one sentence, who would you like to have join your club? What kind of people are you looking for? And they deliberated for about 15 minutes and said, Mr. Brown, I think we have it. Good, what have you got? I asked Sasha, she was the vice president of the club, and she was all glowing. And I said, okay, Sasha, lay it on me. You're the mages of the tech lab, that's your name. Who do you want to invite? One sentence, go. And she said, Mr. Brown, we accept all minds, all kinds. And I wanted to weep a tear of joy that out of this wonderful little 7th grader came this lofty philosophical overarching concept. Who do we accept? All minds, all kinds. That really is the root of what we seek to do with Scholastic eSports. Respect is important. We typically see esports are played by boys, Asian and white boys of a certain socioeconomic strata. And we're looking to break down that stereotype and say, doesn't matter your zip code, doesn't matter your skin tone, doesn't matter your preference or what language you speak at home. If you've got mad skills for the game and a desire to get together and play them, you're probably right for that team. NASF offers at no cost to anybody who affiliates a club with us, who starts up, these 5 C's across the bottom of the screen. We offer a club structure. We teach you how to make a club, not a group of players, not a team, bigger than that. A team is a subset. A club is a roster of all kids who want to get involved in some way, maybe not to play, or maybe as an adjunct to playing. But we also offer curriculum so that any of the things that we've built so far, already approved by the state of California as good to go for college entry at the high school level, we offer that for free. We realize that teachers like to teach what they like to teach, the way they like to teach it. So our curriculum is meant to be additive. It's not prescriptive in any way. You can take it, you can reverse engineer it, you can break it open and take just the chunky parts you like, or it's ready out of the box. You can take it as a semester or a year-long component, drop it in with all the lesson plans and run right alongside and start when you're ready. We offer career tech counseling so that CTE, as I said, is a large part of what we teach. So we have several modules that are built around career tech education courses, and they grow every year. We have a Scholastic Fellows program that is funded by our philanthropy that takes on teachers from now, it's all over the world, who are committed to a year of using their classroom as an experimental lab to create curriculum, see how it works with kids, shore it up, get it approved, and then roll it back into our library for you to take. For those who want to compete, there are definitely competitive leagues. As Jerry mentioned, we play Overwatch and Rocket League at the high school level starting in October. So the roster call will go up in a couple of short weeks here in mid-September, but we're getting ready for that. We'll play other games in the winter into spring, but several other games that we hold on what we call extra credit. So games that we'll play for a weekend, something we'll do as a one-off, but all kinds of games, as we saw earlier on that splash screen, that are available to kids, ones that are picked by an advisory board, ones that are used with caution, that want to represent what communities want to play. Again, when affiliates form, when clubs form, you're allowed to play whatever games you want. You're not compelled to play any particular game. But we also offer free coaching for those games of the season. So for Rocket League and Overwatch, for example, NASef provides free coaching for any club that wants it. We give you a college graduate who's also ranked in the game that they play, and he or she is a steadfast friend of that growing high school club, if that's what's desired. For those kids that don't want to play at all, it's a little bit grayed out there at the top. It says Beyond the Game Challenges. We recognize that while clubs have their time to play and teams will practice and scrimmage as any other traditional sport would, what do you do when you only need 12 kids on a squad to play and your club is 50 deep? What do you do with the other 38 kids? Well, we have these other Scholastic embedded challenges that really highlight the other skills in that esports ecosystem. So any of the challenges you see on the screen are meant to develop a kid's ability and a career tech education mindset, maybe a lead into a career possibility. So anything from let's talk esports to actually putting on a parent or teacher information night about what esports is all about, to designing a club website, to actually having the kids write the code that makes the club website, that gets it up and running, to streaming or shoutcasting an event, adding the color commentary to a live thing, to actually doing analysis. I wrote a section on how to take apart a video like a football club looks at the reel, right? Looks at the tape from the game that was played and takes it apart and gets better. We do the same thing in video games. It's a great way to highlight the smarts that kids have, not just for playing, but for the mind that can see what can make them better. And you would imagine I get this question a lot when I go into classrooms, when I go into boardrooms, and I talk to superintendents about what are we going to do to keep kids safe. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see things in red. These are the 6 top questions that I'm often given when I walk into these meetings, dealing with anywhere from, what about addiction? Are esports addictive? Don't they make little murderers out of kids if you're playing games with guns? And I will quickly point to all of the research that has been done, 15 years of research, in fact, headed by those researchers, as Jerry mentioned, at the University of California, Irvine. They've come from various research universities from across the US. They're housed there right now. There's no credible research at all that points to first-person shooter games making first-person shooters out of kids. Anecdotally, we think that that's what happens in the news. We think that it's always the worst kinds of esports that happen, but it's really not the case. So I bring those information, the data, I bring this to these meetings, and we'll show that there's a way to combat or answer any of these concerns, anywhere from how do you keep kids safe in a chat, how do you marginalize the toxicity and keep them safe from what they can read and hear while they're playing, to the violence factor or game choices, again, that are usually dictated by an advisory board made up of all the presidents of the major universities here in Southern California, as well as superintendents of some of the larger school districts. They opt in. We put a palette of 17 games up for last year, and they helped us pick 5 or 6 that said, we feel good about these for tournament play. If other schools want to play other games, if they want to play Call of Duty, and parents and teachers are okay with that, then that would be their choice. But NASef recommends other ones. We do this by working with our partners at commonsensemedia.org. We look at the ESRB ratings for games. We want to play ones that are teen rated, that are appropriate. Again, things that if there are Concerns about violence in the games. Is there a way for us to mitigate that? Can we turn off sound effects? Can we turn off splatter effects in games that have guns in them? What can we do to mitigate and make this a fun experience for everybody that might want to play? And which games, honestly, do we feel like walking away from, that it just doesn't represent what it is we'd like to say are our ethics? And so haven't had any pushback from students. We play the games they want to play. We listen to student body because it's up for them. It's the kids who are playing. But we tend to moderate that. Students are working with us all the time in what we do, what we produce. And so having their voice, their agency in what we choose, make sure that the clubs we help prop up are really good for them. So as a quick litmus test, there are 5 things you can check to see if you're ready to go. I say this now, this was first developed when we were able to get together and meet face to face, but it still works, I think, in a post-COVID reality, in a pandemic reality. There will be a need for space, whether on campus to build a club room when we're able to get back together, but then also a virtual space like this, setting up a chat channel, whether that's in Discord, that's in Zoom, having a place where kids can congregate, speak to each other, go through the lesson planning, run the plays that they're going to have when they're playing the game, being able to offer hardware and IT support. Now, this is important because, again, for the sake of equity and access, not all kids have a dedicated PC at home where they can practice on it at the times where there's practice. They've got to share it with siblings who are also going to school. The good thing is the games we're picking now are what we call cross-platform. You can play Overwatch or Rocket League on a PC, but you can also play it on any of the popular game consoles that kids might have. So that allows a form of access, and it's a low barrier to entry once we think about the club's space again. You don't need to buy a $1,200 computer to play Overwatch when you can put it on a $400 Xbox and play just the same. Having people is important. Having an adult that represents and becomes the general manager of that club. We have a whole other talk session. We are finishing up a 6-week series on the NASef side of things to support general managers. And the big takeaway is that it's your students in the club. You nominate president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, and it's the students who run the club day to day. The general manager manages generally. Students do the work, and the adult in the room just make sure it all stays lined up with school ethics and functions, and make sure that we're adhering to NASef code of conduct. But again, it's not something that has to be onerous for that general manager. And lastly, if it's desired, there's teachable content out there. We expect the teachers want to change things. I, myself, and others within NASef will work with you to right-size that content and get it right for you if that's what you're seeking to do. Best of all, it's my very favorite F word. It's free. Everything that we do within NASef, whether it's activating a club, it's producing the curriculum and putting it out there in front of you, helping you work on it. It's all of the in-person when it's time for that, and virtual support as often as you need it. The game licenses for games, we work with game developers and they provide licensing for free. Or in the case of things like Rocket League, Psyonix has made that, the game developer has made that game free to play. So that's just fantastic. The coaching, it's all for free forever, headed by this wonderful foundation of which Samueli Foundation is the core. Jerry, back to you.
All right, thanks, Kevin. That was great.
Thank you.
I just want to touch on why I think school leaders should care, and talk a little bit about some of the anecdotal things that I've experienced. I should note that NASef has been a wonderful, wonderful partner with the NCEL. As Kevin mentioned, we were likely the first affiliate, and they really helped us mature and grow our program. I will note that we at the NCEL have carved out a niche for the small and the rural school and district. We've developed some solutions specific for those populations, and I think that's sort of our our area within NASef that we continue to hold influence and sway. I did want to just talk about some of the benefits for school districts. My friends up at Plumas County have talked about ADA captures. Several school installations in the NCEL have talked about Scholastic achievements in terms of testing and performance increases. Those go hand in hand when you have kids attending school more regularly because they're compelled to do so to be part of the eSports movement. You get better testing scores. But the biggest thing for me, well, two things actually. I have an example where a continuation high school in Paradise, Ridgeview High School, in our very first year of operation, was pitted in the league competition against Modern Day High School in Orange County, one of the mega Scholastic sports empires in Southern California. And I just thought it was so cool that here you had, essentially a group that would probably describe themselves as a band of misfits, competing head to head with, this elite high school in Southern California. And it was fun. It was fun to watch. It was fun to watch the competition. And there was just, a level of commonality that I think is good for all students and everybody who participates. And then I have several anecdotal incidents where, a mother comes up to me during a middle school competition crying, absolutely in tears, telling me that this is the first time that her son has been engaged in any school activity, socially, since he started school, since kindergarten, and this kid's in 8th grade. Just several instances where parents and teachers have come up to me and talked about the benefits of esports programming within the confines of school. Kevin, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I got every kind of example. You would imagine I've got 3 years of stories in my head, but these are good ones. I think you're juxtaposing these very, very well. The fact that kids who did not think they could compete because they're not seen as the sports school, they are a continuing education. These are not the kids who typically show up for academics. They really don't care. C- is passing, D+ is passing. Cool. I met that. I'm back out doing whatever's important to me. But when we set up an esports club, we see that, again, as you noted, truancy goes down. Kids will attend. They persist through the entire 7-hour day because that's where the club is, at the end of school. It's not during school, it's after school. That's the gateway. We have a 2.0 minimum grade point average in NASef that says you need to show that you're at least average. And they many times will exceed that to their own surprise. Like, wow, I got a B in Spanish and I speak it at home. Okay, it's because you're actually turning in the work and doing the right things. And school the esports club becomes the cherry on top. So we love that they've got all of this. It's just proving that it's chocolate broccoli. If you build this club setup, not even as a carrot and a stick, but as a reason to come and continue, kids get also involved more in campus life. They're looking at what else can I be doing? Wow, I can challenge myself. I could probably take an AP class. To say nothing of that, we've got these esports ambassadors, college grads, near peers who are working at college levels. We're looking to reproduce this up in Butte with the local community colleges and begin to interspeed these kids into sort of the club matrix where they can see that, hey, you all went on after high school and you did cool things and you're still playing on your school team. But what's it like to be at college? It changes the conversation to not if I go to college, can I afford college, but where could I go to college that's got a cool major that's got something to do with esports, because I think I want to follow that. That could be my career path in life. So we're looking at anything we can do to not only smooth the pathway, but sometimes create the pathway to post-secondary education and showing kids that there's more to life than just this. Yes, you could certainly game. The path to pro is a really high and really short arc. When you're no longer a pro in gaming, you're gone. It's not like golf or football where you might be able to come back after an injury. When you're not popular anymore, you're done. You don't get to come back. Nobody makes a comeback. So you better have a plan. And working through career tech education and helping with the academic side, kids can actually find a job in and around esports that's meaningful for them. So lots of examples of how schools are doing it. I could go long, but I think I'd rather turn it over to Q&A.
Agreed. Are there any questions out there?
To both of our attendees who are currently on our line, Josh and Mr. Irving or Ms. Irving.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourselves if you have any questions.
I have a question real quick. Is there a way I can get a copy? I mean, I know this is being recorded. Is there a way I can get a copy of this so I can show my principal and students? We start August 24th. We're going to go in person first. Hopefully it lasts. But I'd like to take this slideshow and, with the recordings to my principal and show my students to see what kind of interest I can generate and go from there. Is that
I know
possible?
exactly what you're going to get from the student interest part. It's called a rush.
Yeah.
You're dangling a pork chop in front of a Rottweiler. You're definitely going to get interest there. But both Jerry and myself would be happy to work with you to hold another one of these one-on-one calls with your administrators to go over what's there. And again, talk to them and let them ask the really hard questions, knowing that they're not really hard. But I think, Corey, you're going to make sure that the deck is given out today.
Yes, most definitely. Everybody who registered will get a link to the recording and also a copy of the PowerPoint.
Now, is there a timeline to join these things? You mentioned earlier different seasons. Is that how it works?
Mm-hmm. But you can join NASEF at any time. There's nothing that stops you, because we realize that everybody comes at his or her own speed when
Right.
they're ready. So they look at that readiness metric, and once they say that they've got all those 4 or 5 switches flipped, they're ready to go. There's a 10-minute activation process online. Takes about a week to get all the answers back. There are parental permission slips and things like that. But in a week or two, you're up and ready to go. And then it's, where do you want to be? Maybe that's a conversation we have once you get going about what it looks like for your district. So Jerry can help you right size about where should you start first. Let's not, go for all 8 cylinders. Let's start with 4 and drive really slowly and make sure we know where we're going, because kids are going to want to do everything yesterday. But
Right.
You might want to play just locally. You might not be ready or feel that you want to play the games at the competitive level because you're brand new this year. That's okay. No rush. We do have seasons starting coming up, but don't think that you have to jam in and get in there because, Overwatch and Rocket League are starting. You can come when you're ready. There will be pickup games. We have on the NASEF website, we have a function called Scrim Finder. So once you get your team together and you figure out what it is you want to do, Scrim Finder will come match you to kids at those same levels with the same kind of ability to play, and you can set up matches. So you're not losing anything.
Is there a set number of games they can play, or do they have to just play one against
No.
some? How does that work?
You can do whatever you want. We offer 2 games per season. So right now it's going to be Overwatch and Rocket League at the high school level will be our games of season. We'll hold our tournaments. It'll be 10 weeks long. The actual finals will be just after winter break. We'll come back in January, and then we'll have our Sweet 16 and begin to chew down. If we're able to meet face-to-face at that time, as we have in previous years, we actually fly out the Final 4 to Southern California in this case, but we've flown them from across country, and they go head-to-head. We rented out a movie studio last time and then redid it as a giant eSports amphitheater and let the kids have that real eSports gaming experience like you would on the pro scene. So they got the experience, and they also got to just go at it head to head. Came out after a 6-hour day, we had a champion. And it was actually Northern California. It was in Stockton. So it was amazing to see. So that'll come when it's ready. Again, the season is only defined by that, but there are lots of other pickup games we do. We'll have like a Fortnite Friday. We'll have a Hearthstone Thursday. We'll do Super Smash Brothers for those who want to do it. So all kinds of casual games all throughout the season.
Well, great. Listen, I won't hold you any longer. I just want to say thank you, and I will, as long as I
You're
get
welcome.
the link to this PowerPoint and the recording. Next week I'll show my students and show my principal, and then if the interest is there, we'll go from there.
Get your Kevlar vest on. I'm telling you.
Okay.
You're going to be ready to go, Josh.
All right. Hey, thank you guys. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
You're welcome, Josh. You're welcome.
Bye.
Well, Corey, is that, I think that's the extent of our presentation today.
I think so, unless Yvette, did you have any questions for the speakers? Oh, she may have stepped away, and that's fine. Anybody has any questions, they can always contact me, and I can always put you in touch with Jerry and Kevin, or they both have their contact information in their PowerPoints you'll be receiving. So yes, thank you gentlemen both very, very much for this great webinar today.
You're welcome.
And again, we'll be sending everything out to everybody.
Good.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the
My
partnership.
pleasure
here.
as always.
Yeah.
My pleasure as always. See you all soon. Take care.
Bye now.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks.
You too.